So you're basically talking to an AI version of me.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
It worked amazing.
That's amazing. But that's what I mean about using the tools smartly.
Reach for growth, reach for more. Performance marketing, hardcore. Tune in, listen, hear the lore. Reach for growth.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Reach for Growth. I am your host, Gamal. Today I have a very interesting guest, Sanam. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much, Gamal. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Sanam, regarding brand marketing, my intention for the session today is to get to understand more about brand marketing and help our users and our audience to get to know more about brand marketing, why it is important, and how it can work better with growth marketing. So first, if you can tell me about your story with brand marketing and your journey.
Of course. So I think I've been in the industry for 14 years. Brand marketing is what I live, eat, and breathe. So it's second nature to me. And I think that today's topic is very close to my heart because a lot of brands and a lot of retailers don't understand the importance of brand marketing. It's always seen in isolation to growth marketing, but actually it can be an enhancer. And that's why I'm super excited to talk about it.
And I guess a lot of people in retail always thinking like, why do we need to have brand marketing and growth marketing? I'm really interested to hear your take about this.
Of course. I think brand marketing as a term is generally misunderstood. People don't really understand the relevance and the impact it can have because let's talk about growth marketing for a minute, right? Growth marketing generally leads to, I would say, quicker, immediate impact in terms of conversion, but brand marketing is a slow burn. So brand marketing, on the other hand, is the other side of the coin. So it's basically saying to the retailers that trust in brand marketing, it's a long-term growth plan. It will help you in achieving brand equity. It will help you in connecting long-term with your consumers so that obviously you can nurture that relationship and ultimately lead to customer loyalty. Because I'm pretty sure retailers today do not want to have a customer coming one time, shopping at your store, whether online or offline, and then never seeing you again. We want to continue that life cycle and keep churning them. So this is the best way to do it, is that you join forces with growth marketing and then ultimately you reap the benefits.
And in your opinion, like what are the things that totally misunderstood when it comes to brand marketing from a lot of retailers?
I think, so let's probably look at it from a three-faceted angle, right? So brand marketing is always seen as a very, very expensive exercise. People think that, oh, brand marketing is a nice to have, but it's a strategy that's super expensive. Now, you might ask me in what way? So people look at beautiful videos, okay, high production value, but who's to say that I can't create a video using AI as a tool today, or maybe using my mobile phone to create a really compelling storytelling and a narrative that does the same job. It's how do you use smart choices to kind of do exactly what you're meant to do through brand marketing. It doesn't have to be cost intensive at all. In fact, it can be very cost effective. That's the first mistake that brands make, that it's a nice to have.
And it's too expensive.
And it's too expensive, right? I think second one for brand marketing as a misconception is that, I'll do it when I have a revenue generating business. I can do it later. What people don't understand is that you need to look at it from a full funnel perspective. If I'm only going to do it later, you've already missed the train. You've already missed the customer. You're never going to reach them once they've reached the bottom of the funnel. So you need to start through the funnel. So I think that's a misconception that I can do it later on.
Finding the right moment. I'm waiting for the right moment.
It's too expensive now, so I'll do it when my business is, established, and when I don't see a reason right now to do it, but I'll do it later on. I think the third one I'd say is that brand marketing cannot go in tandem with a growth marketing strategy. But why? Why not? I mean, imagine the forces are joined, and if you have one unified objective of your campaign, both your strategies are working towards that goal. So it can actually help each other.
True.
So that's another misconception, that if I have a tactical campaign running, then it needs to be supported by performance marketing, not brand marketing. But actually, the way you talk to your customer through a storytelling, compelling narrative, that's what's going to be the deciding factor to the consumer that you stand against competitors. So it actually helps and it works in your favor. So
And
that's
100%. And honestly, a lot of things that you are saying is actually, it makes total sense to me, because think about it this way, like, I don't find any way a brand can be profitable without being a brand first.
Exactly.
You need to be a brand. You need to have your values. Your customers, your target audience need to know your value, need to know what you stand for and what you support or go against.
Exactly, because I think today, Gamal, there's so much competition out there, right? Every retailer is basically selling a similar product to you.
Exactly.
How do you stand apart from your competitors? Today, people want storytelling. People want to be inspired. They don't want to be told that here's the product, this is the price, and this is my location. Go buy it. Give me a reason to come to you. And that's the power of brand. That's the power of storytelling. And without that, you're just basically telling them a message they already are getting from 10 other retailers and 10 other competitors. How are you going to stand apart? How are you going to cut through the noise?
Especially right now when a lot of competition is going like price war and going
Exactly.
with sale and discount, sale, discount. And once they stop the sale and discount, they say, hey, people are not buying anymore. Yeah, because
Why are they not buying?
You kept them all focused on the sale and discount. You didn't give them any value to attach to themselves, rather than you are a sale or a discount destination.
Exactly. Give them a reason. But even, I'm glad that you brought the sale aspect into things, right? I mean, I think we have the biggest sale coming up, which is Black Friday. I think it's a retail moment that every retailer is waiting for. But every retailer is doing it. So when you talk about Black Friday today, let's say a brand talks about, what is the ultimate goal? To tell your database or to tell your customer or your potential customer, these are my products, this is what I'm selling them at this value. You're never going to find this price again outside of this retail trade moment. But if I don't say that in a compelling manner, how am I going to be remembered? How is that customer going to retain that message saying that, oh my God, I actually saw a very cool ad for Black Friday. Let's take IKEA for an example. IKEA does the quirkiest ads today for Black Friday. It's the same messaging. It's that, buy this chair at an unimaginable discount, but the way they do it with a very tongue-in-cheek kind of narrative, it sticks in your mind. So tomorrow when I know that I want to buy something in terms of furniture, IKEA will pop up immediately. That's retention, right? So it's the power of storytelling during a trade moment that everyone's after, but you're cutting through that noise. So I think that's the power of brand.
Yeah, 100%. And again, a lot of talk can go through positioning and how can you create an image of the mindset of your customers, that when you think, for example, about furniture, IKEA will come to mind. When you think about problem X, your product or your brand will come to mind. This is so powerful and so actually underpriced right now, because not a lot of people looking to compete on this part. They all right now try to look and compete on, hey, I'm going to run a paid ad, I'm going to run Google ads, I'm going to run Meta ads, because what, I can measure the ROI. No, you can't measure the ROI. You can the fact if the platform giving you like the ROI or the ROAS or whatever, it doesn't mean that this is the potential of your brand.
Exactly. But I think what brands tend to forget is that it's delivering a quantifiable result at the end of a campaign, which is short term, right? But brand marketing, like I said at the start, is a slow burn. You need to let it take its course. It's like watering a plant, right? The more you give water to the plant, it's going to die. So less is more when it comes to brand marketing. But that less cannot be taken away. You can't replace it by performance marketing alone. It has to go hand in hand. Both has its relevance and both has its perks. How you balance that between your strategy is up to you.
And 100%. And I can tell you from growth or from performance marketing point of view, the best performance I always see that when brand marketing and performance marketing work together, that hey, this is a nice video that we did with the phone UGC content. You remember this kind of discussion? So let's run an ad around it because it worked really well in organic social. So 100% it will work on paid side. This is actually when your ads is going to stand out, not because of the offering of the 20 or 30 or 40% discount, because it's a different way of talking to customers.
It's the power of messaging. It's the power of delivering that message. Let me take an example of Apple, right? And or IKEA, as I gave. the way that they deliver the message, even if it's a sale message or even if it's a brand campaign, there's consistency with the brand narrative and the identity of the brand, but they're still delivering a sale message. But will you look at it any differently? You'll still look at it, oh my God, that's a cool ad. So why is it that brands refrain from actually taking that approach, like you mentioned, about merging or the amalgamation of both the power of brand and the power of growth marketing together to deliver a unified objective?
Why? What's your opinion about that?
I think, like I said, I think the three problems that I stated at the start was price, I think cost. It's also somewhere I feel it's also the resistance into you can't measure it, right? You have to wait to see the potential in brand marketing. As I said, it's a long-term growth, and the only way to measure it is your brand equity, ultimate customer valuation in terms of life cycle, in terms of loyalty. So all of this, as a marketeer, it doesn't have an ROI attached to it. So brands or retailers definitely will look at it in a way that, okay, it's a long-term gain, but for now, I need to achieve my sales. So I'm going to focus my budget on performance marketing or growth marketing. And brand marketing can take a seat for now.
Okay, so you mean it's from a budget and decision to focus on small win. And yeah, but like even with like what we have found out and working together, that even with small budget on the upper funnel and having a full funnel approach, that 100% we're going to focus more on lower funnel, but we have to have something for the upper funnel.
Of course, and we've seen that together, Gamal. Like when we joined forces together about really looking at a campaign from a full funnel perspective, it has worked out better. Let's take back to school, for example. You know, we've worked on, I mean, I've had the privilege of working on 4 consecutive years on back to school. It's a tactical moment. It's a trade moment. So why are we doing a brand campaign? Why are we creating a beautiful video year after year? The results speak for itself. Like we really, really work together on defining what the end goal is. Yes, everyone's doing a back to school campaign, but the way we actually translate the message of back to school through that campaign narrative and then boost it through growth marketing is what resulted in the ROI. So that's a classic example of how brand marketing, with growth marketing as a strategy can work together. So, I mean, I couldn't give you a better example than BTS.
And from your point of view, what would be like the 3 steps right now that you can advise to anyone who's working on brand marketing to start collaborating with growth marketing to have a full funnel approach?
I think the first thing to look at is the briefing stage. That's the most important. And I think when the retail team gets involved in briefing, of course, they're going to tell you what exactly are your expected results from a retail perspective. But I think that brief needs to be worked on together with the growth marketing team on, okay, this is our objective. These are the numbers we need to meet. How are we actually going to bring that strategy to life? So when we look at all of the funnels or every stage of the funnel, we need to make sure that we are connecting with that customer from a brand perspective on every level. Like imagine me talking to my customer only on the upper funnel perspective, like awareness, and then I don't talk to them in the same tone of voice. How would that work? Like if I don't keep talking to them and nurturing them through their purchase decision, how will I be able to make an impact on them and for them to come back to me as a repeat customer? So the briefing is super important. Secondly is course correction. I think what happens is brand marketing is always seen as the start of the journey. And then after that, it's handed over to growth marketing. But that doesn't work like that. I think growth marketing team and the brand marketing team needs to work together. They need to have a weekly or a daily course correction session to see how are we performing. Okay, this piece of content didn't actually work or didn't actually perform. So Gamal, I'm going to try something different for next week and we'll give you a different piece of assets or content. A/B testing, super important to see, okay, this works better, this resonates better, and always trying to make it better than the previous week will obviously be step 2. And I think step 3 is content. Content is super important these days. I think consumable short form content is something that works on across all channels. It's not only relevant for social media. It's also relevant for growth marketing. How well do the 5-second videos work?
Amazing.
Exactly.
It's super. It's killing it. Yeah.
So, but all of that can only be done if the growth marketing team and the brand marketing team communicate.
Yeah.
And if there's no constant communication throughout the campaign duration and even before actually, you're never actually going to end up in a successful campaign. Because if I as a brand marketing team head say, okay, this is where my journey ends. I've given you all the content. I've given you everything. It's up to you now. But it doesn't work like that. They have to come together and they have to work together as a unified team.
Yeah, 100%. And now I want to move to another point. Like, a lot of people, when they think about the Middle East and they think about like global brands coming to the Middle East, they always like think about, oh, there is no brand. You're just taking the easy route. You're just getting the brand from Europe or the US, and you just start opening stores or opening an online website, and you just start selling. But I guess a lot of the things that people don't see is the localization and the effort that the brand marketing team spent on localization to ensure that this brand is relevant to the Saudi market, to the UAE market.
Yeah.
So
I think localization is probably my favorite topic and favorite thing to talk about when it comes to brand marketing, because localization is always a scary term to global brands because obviously they are protective about their brand. But localization, if done correctly and skillfully, can actually help the brand to achieve better results and better acceptance rate by the local audience that they're actually after. So when you talk about localization, I think it doesn't only mean that, okay, I take a brand campaign that's a global campaign and then I just translate it. No, it's about how do I look at that brand campaign, the global campaign that would potentially work in, let's say, US or the UK, but does that actually work for my market? It may not work for multiple reasons. And I think one of the most important reasons is language. I think language is so important, but people tend to forget that. Faces. Today, people or brands use global, iconic, recognizable faces, which works, and it works in our region too. But what the youth and what the local population today want is they want to see a familiar face from the region, celebrating that brand, who they trust and who they look up to. So the acceptance towards that brand becomes easier. And think about where the campaign was shot. Now, if I see a campaign with a global brand is shot in iconic locations that I'm super proud about within my region, the resonance towards that brand becomes better. So I think these are the three fundamental things that people don't realize the importance it plays when it comes to global brands coming into the region. So I think these three are probably the fundamentals of localization.
Okay, now if you can give me just an example of a localization that you did that you're so proud of, and maybe another example of localization that you did that you learned a lot from.
Of course. I think one example that comes immediately to mind is Timberland. So Timberland as a brand has obviously evolved, and I think the yellow boot is so iconic. They were celebrating their 50th anniversary, where they launched a super cool anniversary pack, and they had an amazing global campaign that they launched. Now, of course, the video was out of this world. Some of the names and some of the talents that they used were very, very recognizable anywhere in the world. So the strategy that we adopted is we said, okay, we'll take this inspirational video, we'll run with it. It's a global campaign. Consistency is key, right? So it's definitely something that I want to talk about, and I want to show the beautiful video that they've created. However, what we did is we did an added layer onto it where we identified 25 people within the region who were face of the brand, who were basically representing Timberland in the region, and everybody looked up to them. And we created short bite-sized content about how they are contributing or how they are celebrating the 50th anniversary of Timberland in a way which was done in a very emotional storytelling format. That, someone said, I grew up wearing Tims, and, I'm into dance or hip hop, and it was part of who I was growing up. So it had a very emotional connection. So the way we kind of translated it through a localized piece of content, which actually did very well, not only on social, but it translated in sales too. And the reason being is that we took a global concept, but we localized it without sacrificing or without jeopardizing the global DNA of the brand. So even though you're leading with a global content or a global campaign with their assets, you can always have an added layer of localization. And the results speak for itself.
Okay, this is very good for the first example.
Yeah,
Now
for the second example.
Second example.
So you want to know basically what we learned from localization.
Yeah,
And,
like maybe our localization that it didn't work well, but you learned a lot from.
I would actually give you an example of a brand where localization did not work. Okay, I think this is an interesting one. So we basically were working on a brand which is an outdoor brand. And we created local content by product seeding some of the influencers to create content for that outdoor brand. Now, the way the influencers were selected, we didn't select the right profiles because ultimately it's an outdoor brand. The people who are going outdoors should have been product seeded versus the number of followers that person has. And it went horribly wrong, Gamal. Because we got content of people standing on top of the mountain posing, which is not what the brief was.
Yeah.
But I think that's a classic example of localization gone wrong. It's selecting the right people to do the right messaging is super important. Ultimately, it's not about the number of followers that influencer has, but is he or she an outdoor influencer? Do they enjoy spending time outdoors? So I think that's probably the example I can give you.
Yeah, I guess this is 100% accurate because here in the MENA region now, a lot of people think that I'm going to start a new brand and I'm going to get an influencer. I'm going to pay him like, I don't know, X, Y, Z.
Exactly.
And he's going to push my brand. That's it. No, like there is some kind of relevance with your brand value. It has to be there in order to be sustainable, not just a one-off kind of thing.
And relevant. If he or she is not relevant to the outdoors, how can he or she be relevant to my outdoor brand? You know, just because he has or she has a million followers,
5 million,
it doesn't matter. It just didn't work.
Okay, now I want to take your opinion about it. I don't know if you heard about it, but Puma recently, I mean within the last 2 days, they have created an influencer based on AI for Morocco. I don't know if you heard about it.
I saw it.
You saw it?
I saw it,
What do you think about that?
Okay, look, now AI, and I'm going to say this in the best possible way, I think AI is definitely the future. It's definitely going to be an enabler for marketeers like us. It's a great tool when budget is a constraint because it kind of helps you customize your content for the right audience. Now, the way AI is used is up to you. Like, do you kind of completely rely on a tool to create a campaign without a human intervention? Maybe not so much for me, right? And I think there's a sweet balance between the two of how much do you rely on the tool versus how much do you need that human intervention to make sure that the campaign resonates with the target audience. Because a lot of AI campaigns in the past I've seen, they're beautiful, they look great, but you kind of lose that realism for me, which I think is a miss.
Yeah, 100%. It's very, for me personally, it was creepy because for people who doesn't or who don't know about this, it was like an AI, like so an Instagram profile, totally generated by, it's an AI, it's not a human, and it says this in the bio that I'm an AI in a way, and start producing content about the brand, wearing the brand, with this face of lady and all of that, and people start interacting with it, ignoring the fact that it's not human.
It's not human, but that's the power of the tool, right? It kind of hooks you in a way that you kind of get scared of what the future looks like. But if it's used in a smart way, it can actually, mundane activities or daily activities can become so much easier. So it's just about finding that sweet spot and saying, okay, this is where I draw the line with AI, and this is the extent to which I'm going to use the tool.
And what I found also very interesting that about a human behavior, that our mind cannot distinguish between an experience online versus an experience in reality. For it's an experience, and he's going to feel. So for people who are interacting with this AI influencer, it's actually they having the same feeling of interacting with an human influencer.
Exactly. So, I think that's interesting.
Okay, now for people, I want to take another angle with our discussion, talking more about the young generation. For people who want to have a career of brand marketing, how can you guide them, how they start, how they should focus on, what kind of skills they need to build to have a foundation on brand marketing, and should they pursue a career in brand marketing?
100%. Like, I mean, I'm a living brand marketeer, right? For sure. I think some of the suggestions that I would make for people who are starting their career in brand marketing is obviously education. Studying about brand marketing is important, but putting that education to use practically is super important. Like, a lot of people tend to dismiss the back-end work that goes into brand marketing. You know, like, it doesn't always come down to a JD that I do X, Y, or Z. It's what happens in your day-to-day that you need to experience. And so I would say do internships, you know, as well, like in companies that would offer that as an opportunity. Internships really, really help. I was an intern once, so it really helped me. And that's when I knew that I wanted to pursue brand marketing. And also, I think it's important to understand content. What are the trends that are out there? How can I be updated with content? You know, what exactly are consumers consuming on social media? What are they consuming in terms of content in general? What are the trends out there? You need to be quite updated in all of these things. And of course, tools like AI. I think AI is the future, and we just spoke about it. So can you potentially look at doing something in AI just to understand and get a broader perspective? These are some of the ways that I would tell, you know, anyone who wants to start brand marketing to basically get started in this way.
And you know, I'll tell you something interesting. I haven't told you this before, but you know, you have created this brand guideline, right?
Yes.
So I've took this PDF file and I went to ChatGPT and created a new GPT, and I put this as knowledge. So it's not just a prompt. I just like, hey, this is an information that before answering any question,
you need to use that as a filter.
As your mind. Go
How
think
cool.
first and get it. And we start like using it for all content for anyone. For example, if you want anything for paid ad, just go talk to this GPT.
So you're basically talking to an AI version of me.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
It worked amazing.
That's amazing. But that's what I mean about using the tool smartly. You've just demonstrated how you can use a tool smartly without actually overly depending on it, because the content that I created through the brand guidelines is my head.
Exactly.
And you've taken my information and fed that into you know, a tool that is doing my job for you. So in a way, it kind of works really well, because you're working, you know, with the content that's fed into the tool, but to make your life easy.
And now the content team, for example, the people who are writing the newsletter, push notification, all of that, they are using it, and you don't have any complaints now regarding like the tone of voice or
no,
this
it's
is not
amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
I was wondering how come it's so on point. No, that's
it's
amazing.
so Sanam, right? Cool. So now, one of the topics that when you always talk about it, I feel that I want to learn more from you, which is talking about the new generation, Gen Alpha. I have no idea about it.
Gen Zalpha. That's
Gen
how I like to
Alpha.
call them. Yeah.
No idea about it. Tell me more about Gen Alpha. How can we understand them so we can market them?
So I think
ethical way.
the first things first is you can't understand them. Okay, let's get that through. But jokes aside, I think the best way to crack Gen Z or Gen A is to know where they live and where they spend their time and how to talk to them. Because even if you realize the way they communicate these days, the slangs that they use, the way they talk to each other, it's a different language for me. Because I hear my nieces talking and there's barely a sentence I can understand. So knowing how to communicate with them on the right platform is super important. And that's where TikTok comes into play, right? TikTok today is where they live. They use TikTok as a mode of communication. They talk to their friends not on WhatsApp or not on a phone call. They'll talk to each other through reels that they create or through TikTok content. So how do you kind of talk to them on the right channel using the right slangs or language that they understand and they appreciate is super important. So cracking that's going to be your entry into understanding that segment. Second is they're woke. We know that, right?
What is woke? Sorry, like I feel like a boomer here, but like
No, but honestly, like they are very well aware of what's happening in whether it's about the environment or whether it's politically. They're super aware. Like I think when I was their age, the only thing I was aware about was school and playtime, and spending time with my friends. But you talk to a Gen Z or you talk to a Gen Alpha, they're way more woke than what our generation was, So we need to understand that you cannot treat them as kids, because that's when you lose them completely.
And what's the difference between Gen Z and Gen Alpha?
It's just a different generation, right?
Age-wise,
So Gen Zs are basically Gen Alpha is below 10.
Okay. Oh, really? That young?
Yeah.
Never know about that.
But honestly, they were born with a phone in their hands. Like literally, they were born with their phones. Like today, they're way more advanced technologically compared to a Gen Z. So that's how you need to communicate to them 6 inches away from their faces, literally, to crack what they're thinking. And I think there's also that social media dependency. So today, if you want to talk to them, yes, social media is important, but they know brands that are genuine, they know content that's genuine, and they know the content that's commercial. So in order to really reach them in the right manner, you need to be as genuine and authentic as possible, or you will lose them.
That's why I guess brand marketing is super crucial nowadays, especially in the future. People cannot go away with relying only on performance marketing, on
Not
gross
at
marketing.
all.
You're
Not
going
at
to be
all.
crushed 100%.
Yeah, because if you every day there's a new generation. Today is generation A, tomorrow will be I don't know what, but if you don't keep up with the trends and if you don't keep up with these generations, ultimately you're not going to convert them into loyal customers. That's what you want. You want to target your muse. They're your muse. Maybe they're not shopping at your store today, but ultimately you want them to shop at your store. So how do you kind of target them through authentic content and storytelling is going to be super critical.
I just have an insight. Maybe it's not 100% related to our talk, but I'm going to share it anyway. That I guess we are the only generation that have spent, not the only generation, but I mean in the near future we'll be the only generation that spent some time without social media or mobile phone in our childhood.
Yeah, I got a phone when I was in the 10th grade. Can you imagine, Gamal?
Yeah, I can. I got it even almost in my high school. Yeah. But yeah, I guess we need to spend more time with the younger generation so we can understand them, because the way that they view the word is different than the way that we view the word, because our experience and our education and our brought up is totally different than theirs.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, if you know how to communicate with them, but today brands claim that they know how to communicate with Gen Zs or they know how to communicate with Gen Alpha, but when they actually do communicate, they always lose them. Why? It's because maybe their content's not genuine enough, maybe it's not authentic enough, or maybe it's not on trend. So there are these 3 criteria that every brand needs to take as a filter to make sure that they're reaching out to them, if that's your target audience that you're after, which today everyone is after them.
What is a brand that comes to your mind that always try to communicate to Gen or the younger generation and they always fail and makes you laugh?
Always fail. Can I give you an example that actually do it really well?
Yeah.
Sephora. Sephora is the only brand that comes to mind that does it brilliantly, okay? Because if every time there's a launch of, let's say, the new brand Soul, or there's a launch of a product from Huda Beauty, or any of these brands, or Drunk Elephant, for example, there's a line of Gen Zs and Gen Alphas queuing up to buy the next new product. And that's only because they're so powerful in brand marketing. If you use this product, you're going to get skin like Zendaya. Or if you use this, you're going to look like XYZ. So the marketing is so strong and so authentic that they look up to them and they're like, I want to be like her. I want to look like her. And they've captured that audience.
So
I think for me, that is the power of brand marketing. And Sephora does it brilliantly for this target audience.
And do you think what they're doing differently is creating a role model for people to follow, or maybe a role model that they're already following and they're adapting this?
Yes. I mean, they're looking at trends, right? They're looking at people that these... so obviously, I think one super important thing that Sephora does is localization, right? So even though they have brands that work with brand ambassadors that are globally recognized names, they champion faces of the region. These faces of the region are people who these youth actually look up to. So they've mastered the art of doing that. So today when you talk to a 10-year-old, she knows what's the next product that's dropping in Sephora.
Wow.
Yeah, she would know that. And I think that is how powerful and how well they've done their narrative and, shared their storytelling with this youth. They've captured them, so I think that's the best example I can give you.
And the worst example. So we can learn from
Yeah,
it.
I think, I need to think about the worst example. I think...
Yeah, but of course you have something in mind. You are a brand marketing director, always working on the street.
Yeah,
watching ads.
I just want to give you the best possible example because I'm always looking at, what's out there, what's happening, how are these brands, reaching out to these younger audiences. I think the one that doesn't do justice to the youth would probably be Gentle Monster. Do you know Gentle Monster?
No, I don't know.
Okay, let me give you an example of a competitor of Sephora, Faces.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so Faces, I think, almost gives an impression that it's for generation like us or older. It doesn't really target the youth as well as Sephora does it, even though the product offering may almost be the same. It's a locally grown brand. It's a homegrown brand in the local region. But the way that a global brand has come into the MENA region and captured the youth, I think Faces hasn't done it in the right way. They've almost positioned themselves as a brand that's for the older generation. And maybe that's, for me, is a miss.
But do you think they did this intentionally?
I think they've done it intentionally, and I think that they want to position themselves as probably a premium luxury, beauty brand or a beauty one-stop destination. But what they don't realize is that these Gen Zs and Gen Alphas are your next in line who will be your customers sooner or later. So what are you doing to actually capture that audience? Because right now you're doing very well with generation like us. You're telling us the exact messages we want to hear, but you're not capturing that audience after us.
And I guess it's going to be very tricky if you're going to attach luxury to an age.
Yeah.
You shouldn't.
You shouldn't but I understand that a lot of brands do that. A lot of brands obviously want to position themselves as a premium brand, and rightfully so. There are brands that are quite luxurious today, but we shouldn't forget that, a lot of the youth in the MENA region come with, a high purchasing ability. Because, today, if they want something, I think that, the access to get that is much higher than, let's say, other countries. So forgetting that segment could actually be detrimental to a brand. Because if you think that they don't have the purchasing power now, but they do have it, and in the future they will have it. So you're kind of missing out on that target audience altogether.
You're having this risk that maybe very soon you're going to be irrelevant to the mainstream.
Exactly. And that's where I feel like, Sephora versus Faces is a great example.
No, I love it. And every time I talk to you, almost like 9 out of 10, you're on Saudi Arabia. Where are you, Sanam? I'm in Saudi Arabia. I'm traveling to Saudi Arabia. So tell me what people getting wrong about expanding to Saudi Arabia, what they should focus on to expand or start a new brand to Saudi Arabia.
That's a great topic. And I think I will talk about Saudi Arabia and I'll talk Saudi Arabia from the lens of localization. Okay. I think brands today, the kingdom is like a buzzword. Everyone wants to win with Saudi Arabia. What brands are forgetting when they come to localizing content is, yes, Saudi Arabia is rich in terms of culture, heritage, but is that all they're known for? What about the vision of 2030? Why are people not celebrating that? Why are brands not celebrating that? So we often forget that it's a mix of both. Yes, it's about culture and heritage, but it's also about the vision of the kingdom that we need to celebrate. And brands can get that horribly wrong. They go in one direction. They'll either talk a lot about the culture and the heritage, forget about the infrastructure that they built, the vision that they have, Neom as a project that they have. They have so much in terms of tech and innovation that you're not celebrating that. And I feel the local audience often do not resonate with brands like that still look at Saudi Arabia only from the lens of culture and heritage. You need to also celebrate their wins. You need to also celebrate how far that country has actually come. It is, in the truest sense, the kingdom, because their vision is exponential. And if you don't really understand that and don't resonate your brand with the local audience through both these lenses, you're not going to make it as a brand.
But how? How can you talk about the past, heritage, culture, and on the same time talk about the future, 2030?
So we did that for a recent launch for JD Sports. So I had the privilege of working on JD Sports not too long ago. So we opened the store in Riyadh Park. And a classic example of how we kind of brought in, let's say, the future, and how did we kind of amalgamate the same with, let's say, culture. So at the store opening, you had a station that was focusing on henna, which is very cultural, but you did it in a very different manner. So people could come, people could enjoy a DJ set. People also could enjoy a Lamborghini being driven by Little Easy right into the mall, but at the same time enjoy putting henna on their hands. So there was a beautiful mix of past and future. This is a classic example of how you can basically celebrate the future with the past and kind of merge the two without it being skewed towards just culture and heritage.
No, 100%. And I guess a lot of people, when they, especially like people outside of the GCC, when they think about the GCC, they always think about that as if the GCC is one culture. It's not one culture.
It's
yes,
not.
It has a lot of similarities between Saudis, Emiratis, Kuwaitis, but like they are totally different cultures in a big way, especially when it comes to shopping, buying online, buying with discounts, personalization, and all of that.
Completely different. I mean, the way, I'll give you an example of JD Sports again, right? We opened a store in Bahrain, followed by Cairo, followed by Doha, and then Riyadh. So all of them were treated differently, because one might think that, but it's the MENA, there must be some similarity. Yes, there are similarities, but imagine if I used a Saudi wrapper in Cairo for the opening, and I used an Egyptian wrapper in Saudi for the opening. Like, how would that resonate with the local?
It will backlash.
Exactly.
Big time.
Exactly. Yeah. So the importance of understanding the consumer is super important to make sure that that brand actually succeeds in that market. And that's the power of localization. Like, you can bring in big names, but if they don't resonate with the local audiences, you're never going to win in that market. So you still are representing a global brand, but you're doing it with a local flair. And there's something that I always say, and I'll say it to you as well, is you think global, but you act local. And that's, I think, the rule of thumb when it comes to localization.
No, perfect. And also, one of the things that's really important and unique to the GCC is the word of mouth, and how important it is, word of mouth. People always, especially people from outside the GCC, they don't understand how brands can go really big by just a WhatsApp message from one family to another, or one person to another.
It works. Yeah. It works, and it's powerful because, like, I would trust my friend, over a brand. Like, Gamal, if you told me today that, hey, I bought this watch, for example, that tracks your health and it tracks your steps and it does this and it does that, that for me is the best promotion of that brand, or the best advocate for that brand, versus an ad that I would see on YouTube. So obviously the word of mouth is a powerful tool. So that's why I think, when it comes to brand sentiment, it's so important. It's super important to understand whether the sentiment of your brand is positive or negative, because that's what will help you navigate through that negative sentiment and make it positive. But word of mouth is definitely a very, very powerful tool.
And is there any kind of three steps maybe about how brands can cultivate word of mouth? So
I think virality is super important. If customers think that something that you've said, let's say through your content, and that content caught their eye, and that content got viral, that becomes, a word of mouth or something to talk about. Product. Is there something that you're giving to the customer that they cannot find anywhere else? Like, is there an exclusive that you have that another retailer doesn't have? That also can create word of mouth. I think also what is super important is, how are you contributing to their lives? Are you making a change, or are you contributing to anything that can change their life to make it better? So these are the 3 steps that any brand should actually look at when they think about, okay, how can I stand out and how can people start talking about me? I think these are the simple steps.
And I guess all it can be wrapped together with storytelling, and if a brand can tell a story.
So when I said content, being cutting edge and something that they've never seen before, that is storytelling. That is how you actually hook them. So that is the crux of everything, is how you're delivering that message for it to become viral, for people to talk about you.
And in your opinion, what are the mistakes that brands do when it comes to storytelling?
I think when it comes to storytelling, people try to go over and beyond. Less is more. Like, don't complicate it. You can still tell a simple message without complicating it. I'd like to give you an example of this, through Apple. Why is Apple so successful? Okay, I mean, how have they mastered the art of localization? Like a brand like Apple, that's worldwide known for its brand identity being all about innovation, simplicity, product design. But let's take an example of when they actually entered the market in China. What they did is small tweaks to their existing product. They made their phone screen sizes bigger. They made or enhanced their camera quality a little bit more. Why? Because the preferences of a Chinese consumer there is they prefer taking selfies. They like taking selfies. They love gaming. So they knew the consumer's preference, and they tailor-made the product for them without jeopardizing what the brand actually identifies for, which is innovation and simplicity, right? And the same thing translates through storytelling. So what they actually do is they believe in 3 simple rules. That the brand campaign that supported their entry into China was on 3 rules. One is they spoke in the language of choice. They used faces that were known to the Chinese population. And the third one is they spoke about the product features that is the most important to that consumer, which is bigger screens, better camera quality. And by that, their market share went up in no time. So it's a simple thing about knowing your consumer and how do you talk to your consumer. So when brands overcomplicate it and they think that they know what the consumer wants, that's where they go wrong. Here, Apple knew they like gaming, they like taking selfies. Okay, I'm going to give them exactly that. And how am I going to tell that story? Through a compelling narrative highlighting these 2 features. Only 2. Whereas they could have spoken about, the capacity of the phone and the other features of the phone, and this is there, and, lightweight, but they didn't talk about it. They spoke about just 2 features. And I think that is the golden rule, right? Less is more.
Yeah, and it's supported by research, right? Like when people are seeing products on advertisement with a lot of features, they tend to only forget everything if it's more than, I guess, 3 or 4.
USP, and as a consumer of that market in China, I know my consumer there, so I'm going to give them exactly what they want, and they won with it. So you don't have to overcomplicate it. It's just about knowing your consumer and talking to them in the manner and their preferences that they are expecting from a brand.
Oh, Sanam, this was an amazing episode. Like, I've learned a lot and it was really fun. Thank you
so much. Thank you, Gamal, for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, same here. Thank you.
Reach for growth, reach for more. Performance marketing, hardcore. Tune in, listen.